when it comes to taking on employees, you hear a lot of people talk, a good game about experience. They talk about skills. They talk about, where they've worked in the past and what experiences they can bring to the table. But what no one is having a conversation about is character, integrity, teachability. Arguably, in my humble opinion, the three biggest things that will determine whether an employee coming into your business, or any business for that matter, is going to be a success or is going to completely fall on its arse, right? A good employee is a person of good character, has integrity, can learn new skills. In other words, they are teachable. Okay. Experience has very little to do with this. Sure, having experience might be seen as the go-to thing from a money in, money out kind of equation. Fine, right. But a person's experience will teach you nothing of their character. A person's experience and time served will just simply say that they have spent X amount of years doing it this way. In my experience, a lot of people that have years and years of experience bring with them a set way of doing things. So you tend to find that the more experienced someone is at something, the less teachable over time they become. And it's not because they're bad people. It's because they're leaning into their experience and saying, well, I've always done it this way. I personally don't think that that is the number one attribute that will determine whether an employee is going to be successful or not. Experience and skill set will not count for jack shit when it comes to dealing with people, customers particularly, right? Knowing how to have a conversation, both, a polite conversation, but also a robust one, knowing how to handle complaints, knowing how to handle a difficult situation, knowing how to handle a difficult customer. If that person's got all the experience, and I've seen it myself, with people that have both worked with me and for me at various stages in my life, being an employee or being an employer, as I am now, I've seen it for myself where a person's experience sometimes overrides their willingness to compromise, their willingness to have that awkward conversation. It's like, listen, I'll have to talk to you, you know what I mean? But I always find that those who lack experience are way more teachable. If they're more teachable, they are more flexible. If they're more flexible, they're more of an asset. If someone has loads and loads of experience in one thing and you pigeonhole them into one area, and then all of a sudden the situation changes like that, and you've got to rejig. It's particularly as a small business. It's not like, working for Harrods or, Tesco's or any multi-billion pound corporation. That's not what I'm talking about. As a small business, you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to be agile. And when the market changes, you need to be able to sort of move things around the board. And, you might not necessarily do things the same way that you've always done them, for example, yeah? You might be forced into changing. But I go back to what I was saying before. When I've worked with people as an employee, and I was in a bakery, as an example, right? And in the bakery, I'd just come off being an apprentice. I was fairly green. I'd done a couple of years where I knew what I was doing in terms of the job, but in terms of actually running a department, I was still learning, okay? And we had several examples of people who would come in from other bakeries, and because they've got years and years of experience, they never lasted. And you would think to yourself, well, hang on a minute, why are these people that have got loads and loads of experience, years of experience more than me, why are they not lasting? And the simple truth was, a lot of the people that weren't lasting because where they had masses of experience, they lacked the ability to work with others. They lacked flexibility. They very quickly sort of shied away from things they weren't familiar with and leaned completely into the sole thing that they were good at, which might be great if you run a business and you can point to someone and say, right, take care of that. But when you're an employee and it's like the boss turns around to you and says, right, we're doing this now, and it's like, well, I don't do that, that's not my job. You know what I mean? They're where they excelled in experience, they lacked attitude, they lacked character. A lot of times they lacked integrity. You can only lean on experience so much. And I forever used to have, you know, many interviews after when I was looking for jobs and stuff like that. I can't tell you how many job interviews I've been to where I've been unsuccessful. I've applied for everything from working at the tip to working in the farm fields, working, building sites, working on, working for the council and stuff like that, or groundwork and stuff like this. I've interviewed for it all, and a lot of the reasons why I weren't getting to where I was getting was because I lacked experience. And it's interesting because I think that if you start, fine, experience is a factor, there's no question, but I think the other side of the equation, I think, is more important. Sure, you might have all this experience, but ultimately, can you work with other people? Are you a good enough character? Are you honest? Have you got integrity? Have you got the ability to, admit when you're wrong? And I can tell, at least. I don't know. It might just be a gift of mine. I don't know. But I can tell after within about 5 minutes of having a conversation with someone, I can tell if they are of good character. I'm generally a really good reader of people for both being good and being bad. If I think, I can tell within 5 minutes whether I think there's something not right about someone. There's, they're a bit of a shithouse. I'm a pretty good reader in that respect. But yeah, I don't know. I've had conversations with other business owners where they would. I think I've had a conversation pretty recently actually where a friend of mine who runs a window cleaning business down south, in Lincoln, has sort of been looking to buy another person's business, and he was looking at buying the guy's round, buying the guy's vehicle, and then having that guy come on board as an employee. Me personally, I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't touch him as an employee, not because he's a bad person. You don't know what bad habits he has. You don't know the reasons why his business has failed. Is one of the reasons why his business has failed because he is so set in his ways he refuses to adapt? Is it because he is lazy? Because, he might be a really, really good technician, in other words, be able to do the window cleaning to a very high standard. But it might be the administration and the business side of it that's failed. There's too many questions, I think, when it comes to taking on someone like that. You need to know what you're up against. And I think, again, if you start with someone who's a virtually clean slate, have they worked with people in the past in form of customer service? Have they, do they come across as a good character? Do they have those traits where, do they say things along the lines of, when you ask them about their experience and say, well, no, but, I'm a quick learner and I really want to, I like a challenge and stuff like that. Cool. I personally would look at someone like that over anybody that has that level of experience. But hey, what do I know? But yeah, let me interested to hear your guys' thoughts. I mean, would you go for experience, or would you go for someone who is moldable, malleable, get what you want out of that person? It might take a bit more time teaching them, but you know what you're getting at the end of that process. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. Anyway, keep on keeping on. See you in the next video.